Servus and greetings from Vienna. My name is Anita Posch. Thank you for listening to Bitcoin und Co., my podcast that's introducing the philosophy, ideas and people behind Bitcoin. Hello, Bitcoin friends. I recorded this interview at the Hackers Congress in Paralelní Polis in Prague at the beginning of October. My guest is Juraj Bednar. He's a co-founder of the Paralelní Polis place in Prague and in Bratislava, which is actually just 60 kilometers from Vienna. Juraj was talking at the Hackers Congress about financial surveillance and crypto utopias. And in his talk, he's showing how the banking system works and how financial transactions are surveillanced. We are covering a lot of very, very interesting topics. Also, why Paralelní Polis is only using cryptocurrencies. So you can go there for a coffee, but then you have to pay with crypto. And if you don't want to do that, you leave again. And he says that's a great way to filter out people who do not have an open mind. And he also tells us a little bit about hacks, how to better up your financial privacy again. And don't forget, you can find me also on Twitter and on LinkedIn, where I post the new episodes and other news from the space. And please subscribe to the podcast in your favorite podcast platform. Okay, that's that. And now enjoy. I'm here with Juraj Bednar. Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Juraj, I think is one of the co-founders of Paralelní Polis in Prague. And before we start, please introduce yourself. What did you do before you got into this space?
So I'm an entrepreneur in IT, lately mainly IT security. I started a few penetration testing companies, hacking companies, and then a bug bounty program. So I was always involved in security and crypto, and I also like freedom. So I was always looking for ways to increase my personal freedom and maybe help others to do the same. So that's how it nicely ties because cryptocurrencies, IT security, and freedom is basically one triangle.
Yeah, it's very, very connected. That's true. So when did you hear about Bitcoin the first time?
I don't remember the exact year, but I remember I got a few Bitcoin for a $20 bill that I mailed someone with a physical envelope. So that was the how to exchange back then. So it was quite early. And then I read the white paper. I thought that it's a huge innovation in computer science at first. So I didn't know much about money and if it can function. So I met with a friend who is an economist of Austrian School of Economists, and I spoke to him for 2 hours. I explained how it works technically, and I asked him if it can work as money. He said probably not, but he's still open. Now he changed his mind and he's very enthusiastic about crypto as well. So for me, it was from the technical and algorithmical side, but now I'm appreciating also the monetary and the freedom, the liberation side.
Mm-hmm. Can it be? I mean, you're from the Czech Republic.
From Slovakia.
From Slovakia.
Yes.
Can it be that the interest in being self-sovereign is here a little bit higher than in, like, say, Western countries because of your political history?
It depends on who you ask. I think that it kind of polarizes people. So there are a lot of people that are very privacy focused and freedom focused, because they experienced totalitarian regime and communist regime. And that's true. That's how I feel. There are many people that feel different. So I wouldn't generalize, but there is among the young people who enjoy freedom and liberty. It's kind of they're looking for ways that are kind of polar opposite to communism, because we have tried that, and even those that don't remember it, I was 7 years old when the regime fell, but there was a aftermath. Of course, I lived in it. But I also know what happened to my parents, to my grandparents, how they lived, what they were afraid of, and I totally knew. So you live in Vienna, so for us, we knew that there's a certain part of Bratislava, there's a river, and on the other side we could see Austria, we could see that there's something else on the other side, but we couldn't cross it, and it was unimaginable. And I remember that when the borders opened, we immediately drove to Hainburg just to see, this is the West, and you can buy I don't know, a cassette player or something. So I think what it makes us appreciate is just the possibility to travel, to speak what we want, and this is great. So maybe if you let me, this nicely ties to concept of parallel police, because parallel police is a concept that was invented during this communist regime, and its goal was how to survive in a society that is not entirely free, or not as free as we would like it. So a lot of people, when they see the current parallel police, which is a building in a nice part of Prague and another building in a nice part of Bratislava, and we only take cryptocurrencies here, we can talk about the physical space right now, but a lot of people, they just say, that's that's a feature of modern liberal democracy, that you can even think about doing something like this. And this is not the case. So parallel society was a way to deal with repression. So the inventor of the concept said that there are many ways how you can deal with totalitarian regime. One of them is revolution. That's either very violent or very costly, usually both. And he didn't want to do that. He was a humanist, and he didn't want to cause bloodshed and kind of ignite this revolution. There is a way which you can enter the Communist Party and change it from within, which was not his way either, because he was already part of Czechoslovak descent, so that was entirely not an option. And the third option is you try to find ways how you can exercise your freedom, the rest of the freedom that you have. So the strategy is that you do everything that the regime requires of you, so you don't go directly against it, so you end up in jail. So if there's for example, if they force you to take a particular job, you take it, because otherwise you would go to jail. Which is still the case today. If you have children, you have to send them to school. There's no way around it. It's mandatory. So you do, because then if you don't, they can take your children, and it's not a nice thing. But what you can do is, you send your children to the state school, but in the evening you can gather some children from the neighborhood, and you can teach them something else, something from West, some leaked information. You can create an evening school. And parallel police is police meaning not cops, but a city from Greek, or the smallest societal unit, let's say. So it's creating this parallel social structure that increases your freedom within a society that is not as free as you would like. So his original idea, we took most of it. So his original idea was they were performing private religious practice, because during communist regime the official state religion was atheistic materialism. So I'm not religious, but that was important for them back then. Spreading of information, which was very important because back then, even among dissent, the information spreading was hierarchical. So the most important people got the information first, and then they were spreading. So Václav Benda said, screw it. The person that can make the most copies in the shortest time gets the information, and let's just spread it as fast as possible. They created parallel economies, which people today call black markets because they were not allowed back then. Then there was parallel culture, so underground bands, underground books, and so on that were straightforwardly banned. So you could go to a village and perform a concert, but no one outside of the parallel society could knew about it. So that's I think I forgot one more, but parallel education, I mentioned it. So Parallel Polis is basically trying to do the same thing. We are thankfully not living under a totalitarian regime, but there are still ways how we can increase our freedom. So that's what we are trying to do here.
Mm-hmm. And when did this start here in Prague?
In Prague 5 years ago, and in Bratislava it was last year. So we have 1 year anniversary.
And how did people here gather the money to rent or buy this building?
It's rented in Prague. The whole idea was performed by a group of artists, which means that as artists they're completely crazy. So we wanted to rent one room, like this one small room that we are sitting in, and maybe show our art. We are doing controversial art in public spaces, and talk with our fans about it or something like that. So that was the plan. Then some members of the group saw this nice 3-story building with a basement and everything, and just signed the contract. Oh. And then we said, okay, all of the artists, we were kind of putting money together, and they were like, okay, I can pay 10 euros per month or something like that. So we needed to create a business plan. So we are looking about what services we can provide and kind of make it self-sustainable, which I'm really glad that we did, because especially in the East, there is people perceive in a non-profits, people perceive money as a problem, and I think money is very important. It's information if we are doing something for people. If no one is willing to give us money to do what we want to do, then we shouldn't do it. Probably we are not doing a good job. So even before Parallel Polis, I started a hackerspace in Bratislava, and we always use the same principle. If we don't have money, it doesn't mean that the world hates us and everyone is against us or something. It means that we are not doing a good job, and we need to find how to better serve the people that we are for. So Parallel Polis does a few things. It is a non-profit, so we attract board members who are private people who help finance this project. We also have a crypto-only cafeteria, which is called Bitcoin Coffee. The goal is not only to sell coffee, but it's like a reception where people can try using cryptocurrencies for the first time. And because we don't sell for euros or Czech crowns, it means that we call it that the customers have to go through crypto initiation, or some people call it crypto torture. But what I realized, I have done many talks about Bitcoin, and I said I realized that it either takes 1 or 2 hours of me speaking to a microphone, or 10 minutes actually showing people how to use it and buy coffee with it. So it's a very effective way to not only introduce people to crypto, but it has very important effect, and that is that we kind of filter for people who have open mind. So if like there are maybe a third of people right now, the number was higher, but right now a third of people, when they realize they need to just buy some funny coins and install an app or something, they'll just turn around and leave, and they go to a different cafeteria. And again, at first we perceive this as a problem, but it's not a problem because we don't want those people here either. When the time is right and they change their mind, they're free to come. But this place is for kind of helping people open their heads into doing things differently and increasing their freedom. So if they're not willing to spend 10 minutes, it's not even 10 minutes, it's less, but let's say 10 minutes installing a wallet and buying crypto and paying with it, then they're not the right fit for us.
And which cryptocurrencies do you take or accept here?
In Prague, I believe Bitcoin, Litecoin. We also take Lightning Network payments, and I think Monero, I'm not sure. In Bratislava, where I live and I know it better, it's Bitcoin, Litecoin, also Lightning, and I believe we take also Monero, Zcash, and a few others. We actually have a terminal that accepts, for example, Dash, but since we only got one Dash payment, it's more a problem for us. so around half, maybe 60% of people use Litecoin because of the fees. Because 2 years ago we had a problem that the coffee was 10 times cheaper than the transaction fee, so we had to do something. Lightning Network was not ready, so we started pushing Litecoin back then. Now we are trying to introduce Lightning payments, and we are trying to help people on board, open channels with us, and so on. So right now, actually, most members that or Stammgasts are regular guests. They usually use Lightning because they have a channel with us. But still, we accept even on-chain payments, and Litecoin. That's the most common.
And also I can go to Bratislava to exchange fiat currency to Bitcoin. You have also an ATM there.
Yes, we have an ATM. We have 2 ATMs actually. They're not owned by Polis because we don't want to deal with cash and doing all the maintenance and I don't think it's much about regulation. I'm not sure about regulatory status, but you need to take the cash sometimes and do something with it. So that's not what we would like to deal with. We are using crypto because we don't want to deal with cash, so we kind of outsource this. But definitely you can. So a lot of people, of course, they don't have crypto, so they need a way to get it in order to become our customers. So.
Okay, yes. Great. So you're also having a talk today or tomorrow, I think?
Tomorrow, yes.
And it's called Financial Surveillance and, help me now?
Crypto Utopias.
Thank you. And what is it about?
So I started to look at all the buzzwords that banks, but also crypto exchanges require of us. I have been using international banking even before crypto. I had several companies in different countries, and even back then it was quite a big problem. Sometimes bank would ask that they want to see an invoice and contract for a payment. They asked me where I got my money from and so on. So I got interested, and I realized that even people in crypto, they just do what the bank or the crypto exchange wants from them. So if they say, okay, upload an identity card or utility bill or something, they do it, but they don't understand what is happening to this information, to this data. So so I started to dig deeper. Okay, so they want this information from me, not only about my identity, but also about my transaction. So what do they do with it? Where does it end? Do they send it to my government? Do they send it to the police? Do they sell it somewhere? And I started to investigate. I met with several people from banks actually that are responsible for these systems. So for risk and fraud detection, anti-money laundering, and all those things. And I asked them not exactly how they evaluate the risk. So how do they know that you're laundering money? Which is something I don't like this term, but that's how they call it. Or but what I wanted to learn is when they think that something like this is happening, what happens to the information? Do they just block it, or do they send it somewhere, and where? And so basically, I'm talking about the results of this investigation. I realized that the financial sector is overregulated. But to my surprise, most of the regulations do not come from governments. They're either network self-regulation by the payment networks. So, for example, a really good example is in Panama. After Panama Papers, it is very hard to do international payments. And one of the reasons is that Panama is using US dollar. They don't have their own currency. So every international payment has to go through the Federal Reserve and through an intermediary bank. So these banks, there are three big banks that act as intermediaries for US dollar transactions. These three banks, they make up the regulations for the Panamanian banks. So even though Panamanian law doesn't say what kind of anti-money laundering checks they have to do, it's the banks that regulate these transactions. And it's very difficult. We had a friend trying to send money to her daughter in Spain. It was 800 euros, and the bank stopped it because of money laundering. So it's in some countries it's really crazy, and all of this is happening not because it's written in some law. It's because of risk avoidance of banks and so on. Another very interesting example would be an organization that is called FATF or GAFI in French. It's Financial Action Task Force. That's officially an independent think tank that resides in the offices of OECD in Paris. So they're physically located in Paris, and it's an organization that provides recommendations for financial institutions on how to deal with money laundering. So these are recommendations by an independent think tank. It's not a governmental organization. It's not even part of OECD. It's a think tank. We can start a non-profit, call it a think tank, and that's what it is officially. And one of the things that they maintain is the list of suspicious countries, or called gray list. They also have a blacklist, but I think only North Korea and maybe one or two countries are on the blacklist. But there are some countries that are on the gray list. Currently, Panama is one of them, and I know Panama quite well because I travel there, and I know the banking situation because it's a good lab to test all my assumptions for this research. So what happened that when Panama got reintroduced into this gray list, and the banks lost most of their intermediary banking connections, meaning they cannot do international transactions. As you just cannot. It's not blockchain. It's not how the traditional banking works. So it's just they're totally dependent on having an intermediary bank, and all or most of the banks they require compliance even with these recommendations. So it's not a law. It's not something that any members of parliament voted for. It's a recommendation by a group of 5 people sitting in an office in Paris, and it's enforced on the whole world, because the enforcement is based on this network effect of the payment network. So if you want to interact within a banking system, you have peers. So actually, international banking is very peer-to-peer. Usually, some of the peers are central banks, but it's also hubs of commercial banks. And most of the commercial banks, they enforce these recommendations, blacklist, watch lists. So, for example, a bank in Slovakia told me that they also use blacklists and watch lists from Czech Republic and Germany, even though they don't have to. But if they're part of a banking group and if they are doing payments, they're either required to directly by their peers, or it's easier for them, because then they have alibi basically, and they don't need to worry about it, because they can always say, "Oh, yes, don't worry, we checked against your blacklist as well, and the transaction is safe." What the banks are doing is, I would say, so in the US, if you want to drink outside, it's not as easy as in Europe, because it's not allowed to drink alcohol outside. So what would happen is that you would take a paper bag and you would put the bottle with alcohol and you would drink. All the police outside, they know that you're drinking. It's not a secret. Why would you put mineral water in a paper bag? But they have an alibi because it's not obvious, so they don't want to deal with you, and then the rule doesn't apply. So this is exactly what is happening, and it's very important for crypto people to understand, because a lot of people in crypto, they think that banks, they don't want to deal with crypto exchanges because they think that crypto threatens their business or something. No, it's exactly this principle. They need to have their backs covered. They need to show off that they kind of prevent what they can see. So if you're a retail bank and someone is doing transactions and they're paying €2 per month for an account, it's not worth for them. They just cancel your account. And it's also the same with these rules. So the paperback analogy is very similar to my experience when I tried to open a bank account in a foreign to me European country. I went to them and I went through the anti-money laundering questionnaire. And the officer in the bank, my account manager, actually, he needed to fill the source of funds form and everything. And the first thing he said, please answer only yes or no. I don't care about, your life story or how your business went or something. I need to fill this form. And what he was basically saying is, please keep your alcohol in the paper bag. I know that it's possible that, you didn't pay taxes on this. I know that it's possible that you don't know how to explain the source of funds. But if we don't talk about it, it's okay. I don't need to. I'm not actually here to judge or stop any money laundering, I need to fill the paper so I can show the regulator and the banking peers that I've done what I needed to do. So it's the very same principle. So this is very interesting for me that most of anti-money laundering and tax evasion and offshore is enforced through the banks. They can be very effective if they want to, but they don't want to. If they want you as a client, if you're paying enough, then they will have you as a client. If you say upfront that you want the free account and even get some positive interest rate, and you're suspicious, forget about it. We don't want to risk having you. So
that's a two-class society too here.
Yeah, sadly, yes.
But what you were talking about now, so you had a human being, you talked to this guy.
Yes.
But if everything is digital, you don't have this gray space, do you?
You don't, exactly. Yeah. And that's the problem that people are having these days. Things are becoming digital. People get their accounts cancelled and they cannot talk to a human being. So that happened to several of my friends. They just got a letter from the bank which said, sorry, we cancel our contract. You have 2 months to withdraw your money, and we don't want to deal with you anymore because you're a business risk. Even if they say that you're a business risk, sometimes they don't say, and you have no one to call to. That's some back office decision, and it's a problem. So what is interesting about this as well is that especially in Europe, this is a big problem. It's not such a big problem in the US, for example, but or Panama. So in Panama, half of adult population doesn't have a bank account, and it's not a problem because it's a cash society. You can buy a villa at the beach with cash. It's totally common. It's totally not a problem. You always can see a suitcase full of money. In Europe, if someone brought a suitcase full of money, you would panic and you would probably leave because that's about cash limits, and even private people, companies that are not financial institutions. In many cases, they have to do AML and source of funds. So, for example, real estate agents, right now they have to investigate where you got your money from. So it's kind of very different. You cannot use cash, even if you wanted to, for some kinds of transactions. So that's one thing. You need a bank account in order to function in the society. If you cannot buy a laptop in France the cash limit is 1,000 euros. So you cannot buy a MacBook Pro with cash. It's not possible. You need either a credit card or a bank account. So on one hand, you need a bank account to function in the society. On the other hand, these are all private companies. You cannot force a private company to have you as a client. So the bank wouldn't say you're a bad person. They say you're not good fit for us. Please go to the competition. But if the competition says the same thing, then you have a problem.
So basically, it's like having no human right to have a bank account. So
yes.
They say you not. But what you said before, it sounded for me like the governments or the state, the nations, they regulate, but the banks overdo it in a way. They regulate more that the government
yes.
wants them to, because if one bank starts and if the FATF says, now you have to do this and that, then all other banks follow.
Yes, that's true.
And then it's like a spiral, always getting narrower.
Yes, that's true. And what is also happening, which is also very, very weird and unheard of, is that some countries are enforcing their regulations to other countries. So an example would be FATCA, which is a law in the US that requires foreign banks to identify if someone is an American taxpayer, citizen, or has anything to do with America. So I'm a citizen of a country in European Union, and I find myself while opening a bank account or a crypto account, filling an American form that's based on some American law. And I'm not in America, the financial institution is not in America, and I'm filling this form, and I don't understand why is it happening. And the reason it is happening is that they said, okay, all American banks have to do it. If they want to send or receive money with other banks, they have two options. Either the other institution that can be outside of USA, either they do it as well, so they comply with American law even if it shouldn't apply to them, or they deduct 30% and send it to the IRS. That's how it's enforced. So from every transaction. So of course everyone accepts this regulation. So it's these independent think tanks, of course, national parliaments, European Union. It's other countries that regulate how we should or our financial institutions should do it, and it's several other organizations. So the landscape is quite complex. It's not as easy as in other industries. So I don't know. Education is usually regulated maybe a little bit by EU, a lot by local parliament, but the US government doesn't say anything about Austrian schools.
They say it's because of anti-money laundering and terrorism, but did they catch a terrorist through these laws and regulations? Do you know that?
I have never heard of anything like that happening. Most law enforcers would say that they would not tell because it's secret or something like that. So,
but do you think that there are other methods? I mean, are there any ideas or suggestions how authorities could find out criminals and terrorists and stuff without surveilling all of us?
I think there have to be, because they are not catching any real criminals because they adapt. We have cryptocurrencies. If you for example, Deutsche Bank has been fined several times because of money laundering. So they're doing it. They just have a high enough fee in order to cover the fees. So the fines. So I think it's the same problem with all security. We call it security theater in IT security. So, for example, if you go through the airport security, you have to take off your shoes. They scan everything. You cannot bring your water, and it's for your safety. But then there's a real test by something that's called a red team, which is someone who is testing the security if they can take something on board. And they have 80% success rate.
I don't want to know that.
even in Slovakia, what happened? They were testing it internally, the police, and they were able to take an explosive on board, and it landed in London from Bratislava airport. So it's security theater. It's because people want to feel safe, and honestly, I think it's not a job of a politician to make you safe, because they cannot do it. But it kind of is their job to convince you that you're safe. So even after 9/11, they had to do something so people were not panicking. That was their job. It was not to catch Osama bin Laden. It was not their job to really prevent another attack, another similar attack, because the next attack will be different. They started using trucks and cars, and like every attack can be different because the attackers adapt. But what really was their job was to convince people to feel safe, and that's what they're doing. I think that's the tactics. It's not about catching terrorists and criminals. It's about making everyone else believe that they're doing something.
Which kind of ways can we find as people, as human beings, to opt out of this financial surveillance system? Is there a way? Because, I mean, the common people, they have as you said before, you need a bank account for everything, actually. So what is the solution? Is there a solution?
There is not one single solution, but there are many pieces of the puzzle that if you combine them, then you can have pretty good financial privacy. Of course, what is important here is to distinguish between mass surveillance and targeted surveillance. So targeted surveillance is if a judge signs a warrant and someone really tries to investigate you as a person because you committed something. That is something that it's not as easy to protect against. Mass surveillance is just recording data of everyone. So the first thing that anyone can do is use more cash whenever it's possible. Pay cash. I know that Apple Pay and credit cards and everything, it's very convenient. You don't need to deal with coins, but you're losing financial privacy all the time if you do that. I don't know about credit card companies, but for example, if you're paying using PayPal with your credit card, PayPal is sharing your private transaction data with more than 600 institutions and private companies. They have it on their website. You can check. I didn't make it up. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's when you look actually at the third parties that they send information to, they're listed there. There's various governments, tax offices, but also private institutions, risk analysts, marketing organizations, and so on. So the first thing is not to feed the beast with your data. So using cash is great, but you cannot do it online. So another thing is to use cryptocurrencies. Kind of an intermediary step would be to use prepaid cards, but they're quite limited, and they usually you can buy a prepaid credit card. I think in Vienna, in many countries, they're not available, but in Austria, we've been buying them in Austria. So you can buy a prepaid debit card with a card number up to 100 euros or something, and you cannot recharge it. It's just you go to a newspaper store and you can. It's a gift card basically. So some of them you can use online, and it's kind of one-time use thing that you throw away, but it's not tied to your identity. Then of course you can use cryptocurrencies whenever you can. There are many shops that accept cryptocurrencies. Even really big retailers in Czech Republic and Slovakia, they take cryptocurrencies. It's one of the things that we are proud of, that we convinced some of the big players to take crypto. And usually if you convince one, then the others will follow because they don't want to be left behind. So using cryptocurrencies directly with retailers online is nice. What you can also do is use proxy merchants. So there are services like Purse.io, which lets you buy stuff on Amazon with Bitcoin.
Does it also work in Europe?
Yes, you need to use the UK Amazon. It doesn't work with the German one because of an incident that happened, and they just stopped supporting the German website, but you can order from the British Amazon. So, and there are more services like that. So you can either buy gift cards with crypto on Bitrefill or somewhere else, or use proxy merchant service like this, and you can use travel agency that can buy airplane tickets for you and so on. So that's another option how to do it. Of course, hodlers would say, oh no, I'm not spending my crypto. So what a lot of people, even here in Polis, do is that they use crypto for financial privacy. And when they spend it, they buy it back in the ATM. So very, very easy strategy, but not everyone kind of gets it that you can do something like this. Then what I like to do is kind of try to use the network effects that the banks and all these institutions are abusing to spread their financial surveillance, to spread the use of crypto. So what I do, I'm a jerk. So if I go to a lunch with a friend and I pay it with cash and we want to split, I only take crypto and I only pay crypto, and people hate me for it for the first time. But then when they get their first crypto, they want to use it as well because now they're crypto users. So it's spreading really fast. So this is actually what we are doing here in Polis. We are jerks. We don't take fiat, and it's basically using this effect.
So you're getting your crypto always peer-to-peer, so from somebody else, or do you have a level of money at the ATM where you can buy it without, exchange it without KYC?
Yes, you can buy it without KYC up to 5,000 euros in Bratislava.
Wow.
So and that's one transaction. So if you generate a new address,
5,000 euros.
Yes,
I think it's 250 in Austria.
Oh, that's not very nice. And what is nice that they cannot tell that when you generate new address that it's the same customer because you don't put in your telephone number or anything like that. But here, a place with a community like Polis is great for in-person transactions. It's cheaper. You don't need to pay the exchange fees and ATM fees. So it's quite common that someone comes to Polis and just says loudly that they want to buy crypto if anyone is selling, and someone probably will. So that's another option to kind of use these places like Riyadh, Polis, and all these communities just to get and trade crypto. So
does that mean that you only hold crypto, or do you also have euros? I mean, for your business, you might need euros too.
Yes, I'm using crypto more and more for international transactions, also in business. I have some euros, but what I just realized, what I can do is another nice hack. Doesn't work with euros, sadly, but I'm kind of willing to take the USD to euro risk. So what you can do is if you have euros and you want to migrate to crypto economy, but you don't want to be exposed to the crazy volatility because you want to survive the next bear market or something like that, what you can do is you can take the fiat, buy crypto with it, and at the same time short it on an exchange without KYC or a perpetual swap or something like that. What is really interesting is that what happens is that you have crypto, but it stays in the same dollar value, and because the other side, the longs, they're using it to leverage their crypto positions, they're paying you interest rate. So what really happens is that you have a US dollar denominated account in your hardware wallet because you're in crypto, but it's keeping the dollar value because you're short Bitcoin into USD, and you're getting an interest rate. It's variable. Right now, when I was last looking, it's 10% PA, which is something that no bank will ever give you. And you don't need to send the full amount to BitMEX or Deribit because you only need the collateral. So to be able to cover the movements. So most of the money is in your hardware wallet. So you have total control over it. So that's a way how you can kind of replace a bank easily. And the last part is a lot of people need to pay invoices and for their phone and electricity and rent and everything. So there are services like Lamium in the European Union that allow you to upload the invoice paid with crypto, and someone who wants to buy crypto, they will pay the invoice for you.
I've never heard about that. How is this called?
I think Lamium.
Okay.
We can put it in the show notes. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure. It's in the bookmark, so I don't remember. But there are probably more services like this. This is just one option. So you kind of can have access to just simple payments without the need of a bank account. In some countries, you can even pay SEPA transfer in the post office. You need to fill the paper form and give them cash, but they will identify you for this case. But yeah.
What's your favorite cryptocurrency?
Bitcoin.
And why?
Because it's the first one, and the reason why I like it is the exact reason what I don't like about it, and that is that people are religious about it, and they kind of not try to not mess with it. There is, I have to admit that I would like to see more innovation in Bitcoin. But that's the fact that it's not happening is precisely the reason why I like it, because no one is touching it and doing fork every 6 months and so on. I also like Monero because I value financial privacy. But the way how I would and how I do use Monero is I only have a little bit of it, and I use it not as a store of wealth. I use it for transactions. So it's really good if you need to pay someone or buy something with it. I use xmr.to for Bitcoin transactions, which I can pay with Monero. So that's also nice. So
okay, you can pay with Monero for Bitcoin transactions. So
yes.
You don't have to exchange it before. You just
pay. Yeah. Okay. You can also, many Monero wallets. What they will allow you to do is to scan a Bitcoin QR code, and the conversion will happen on the background. So it's like a Bitcoin wallet, but it comes from Monero. So I'm really happy that there is a lot of innovation in crypto space and people are experimenting with these things. But I still think that if people, I think it's not about features. I think it's about how many people use it and how many people trust it. So even if there's a new super cool cryptocurrency that has a little bit better anonymity, lower fees or something, I'm not that interested, because I know that most people are looking at Bitcoin and it's still the biggest thing. So even like people use Facebook, but they don't use it because it's the best social network, but it's because everyone is there. So in crypto, everyone still means a small group of people, but out of the small group of people, most have Bitcoin. Even if they have something else as well, they for sure have Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm. And was the Lightning Network a new thing for you where you got enthusiastic about Bitcoin?
Lightning Network, I also have a love and hate relationship with it. I think that there are many unsolved problems. So Polis is only using cryptocurrencies. So I had also internally. So it's not that we accept it from customers, but we also pay wages, pay most suppliers actually with crypto, or at least using these gateways. But we don't keep a huge fiat balance. We really use it every day. So for example, what we do, Polis often has to pay me if I buy, for example, we run out of coffee. I buy it from the supplier. I bring it to Polis, and they need to pay me for the coffee. So I started using Lightning Network for these transactions, and honestly, it's a pain. It used to be that it didn't work 80% of the time. Now it's maybe 20% of the time, but it still happens that I tell our node to pay the invoice, and it's taking 2 minutes to find the route, and then it says that route not found or something like that. So there needs to be a lot of work done, especially in routing algorithms and also in privacy. What I like about Lightning Network is that it allows for more innovation that is not happening on chain, and also a little bit of smart capacity. I'm a part of a project called D-Bank with a few friends. I think you have already interviewed them. So I wrote a paper on how to do crypto derivatives on top of Lightning Network, which is really a good idea. You can do really nice, innovative things on top of Lightning Network because it kind of gets this additional programmability without the need to pay for huge fees on chain. So if anyone is interested in derivatives, I think this is something that is coming to Lightning Network. We will be working on it, but I hope others will as well. It's all open, and this is why I'm really happy that it exists. It probably isn't the best thing for paying for coffee yet. So,
are you coming to the Lightning conference in Berlin in October?
No, I was in the Lightning Hack Day in Munich, which was really nice.
We didn't meet there, huh?
No, oh, I tried to kind of gather some people and get insight about the way how to do financial derivatives on top of Lightning, and it was great because I got a lot of great feedback, and that's the reason why it happened. So I'm really glad that these events happen.
Mm-hmm, great. So we're coming to an end now. Can you maybe give our listeners some book recommendations or video recommendations on things like Bitcoin in general or crypto anarchy or financial freedom? Yeah.
So for financial freedom, I think my upcoming book will be good. I'm writing it. It's called Financial Surveillance and Crypto Utopias, the same as my talk, but it's not out there yet. So right now for crypto anarchy, I think books by Paul Rosenberg are great about the philosophy. Logic of Wayfaring Man is basically the philosophical predecessor to cryptocurrencies and decentralized markets. So that's a really good book, and any other book by him. He also co-wrote a book with Jonathan Logan called The New Age of Intelligence, which talks about surveillance in general and also talks about this networked surveillance and network enforcement. So it's a really short, nice book to read. About Bitcoin, I don't read many books about Bitcoin because I kind of followed it when it was happening. So if someone is into computer science, then the white paper is great. A friend of mine, Alena Vranova, with several friends, wrote a book called Little Bitcoin Book, or Little Book of Bitcoin.
The Little Bitcoin Book.
Yes, so I saw it, I didn't read it, but I'm sure it's great because the authors know what they're doing. So that would be a good book. And YouTube videos, I think recordings from this conference, from Hackers Congress Polis, last year's was especially good. I hope this year will be great. And we try to publish all the talks in Polis, both in Prague and in Bratislava. Not all talks are in English, but from the Hackers Congress, most talks are in English. So feel free to go to the YouTube channel of Polis. There are literally hundreds of hours of talks, not only on Bitcoin, but also on crypto anarchy and decentralized finance and all these super interesting topics.
Okay, great. I will put that in the show notes too.
Great.
So yeah, thanks for talking with me, and maybe you can also tell us where people can find you.
So the best place to start is my website, which has all the links to everything, and it's juraj.bednar.io. And there you can find me on social networks. I don't use Twitter much, which is weird in cryptosphere, but I just kind of got out of habit of using Twitter, but you can find me on other social networks, and I also blog in English. If you go to the website and it's not in English, you can switch it in the menu, so don't be scared. I have a lot of content also in English, so talks, blogs. So
great, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, and I'm going to come to you to Bratislava because
Perfect.
I want to have a look at your space there.
Please do.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you, bye-bye.
That's it for today. Thank you for listening. What did you think of the interview? Did it bring you greater understanding of Bitcoin and its people? If yes, and if you want to support my show, please subscribe to the podcast in your player, leave some stars, and share on social media. Feel free to contact me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, or send me a voice message via the link on the episode page. Goodbye from Vienna. Auf Wiederhören. Music, start with Yes, Delicate Beats. Idea, content and production, yours truly, Anita Posch.